have my work critiqued by Ben and David. It's an honor for me. And just quickly about myself, my background is in photography and painting, which I often mix together. But in this new body of painting on canvas that I'm going to show you, I'm using printing inks on a base in multiple layers and then oil paint over that. And the process of creating these layers of materials over time is important to me. So the process is important. In this series, I'm finding that the colors and the shapes and their relationship to each other are becoming much more important. And so with that being said, I'm going to do my presentation. What's going on? Here we go.
You're doing great, Gal. Just keep going.
Should I keep the sharing on or should I turn it off?
Why don't you keep it on, and then David and Ben might want to have you go to certain images that they want to talk about. That's beautiful. Thanks so much. That was so, so beautiful. All right, so David and Ben, you're on.
Fantastic. Ben, may I start?
Yes, absolutely.
I say that I've had the pleasure of seeing paintings within this series in person, Ben. So I do have a sense of what Anna is conveying when she talks of this uneasy but sort of symbiotic relationship between these materials of such different viscosity, association, clarity, fuzziness, etc. I mean, of course, a painter can do what they like with any paint, but these are not thrown together to make a third kind of paint. There's a dialogue or a friction between the paints, which is energizing. I should also say in the interest of disclosure, that I had the privilege of curating shows for a year at One Grand Army Plaza, which I think is public knowledge to anyone who goes to the Equity Gallery, because I did a kind of capitulation show there at Equity. And Anna is the long president of that committee. But my last paycheck cleared, so I can critique the work with a clear conscience. And luckily, I have nothing very negative to say about it, so it won't appear of any kind of, belated surly employee revenge. But anyway, no, joking aside, I have a relationship with the artist and the work, and I would like to convey that this sense of being contained or being pressured or of emerging from a field denoted by one handling of material and occupying another is not, it doesn't seem to me forced. It could be, but it's not. One thinks of artists who deliberately pit one material against the other. And one example would be Francis Bacon, who would sometimes do his very placid grounds in acrylic, and then have these kind of frenetic splurges of painter's flesh in oils. I don't think that's the kind of dichotomy that's coming about here. I think it's something more subtle and at the same time suggestive in a way than that. They're very Hodgkin-y. Sorry to be so Anglo-centric, as my taste following my accent, as it were. But Ben, do these remind you at all of Howard Hodgkin in some instances?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. In the sense of, I believe that, from what I understand, his paintings are memories of places and events that he's seen that are sort of kind of pulled out through the painting, and I feel like these seem to sort of they're almost like hazy memories, or the process is leading towards something that is emerging or seen through a hole or a window or something like this. But it's all in paint, so it's kind of a double thing that's happening.
Mm. Yeah, there is also there is also that sort of in Hodgkin, you do get, I suppose, the within the frame, without the frame, and the frame becoming a kind of platter, but also window and all those connotations. And I think there's something like that. There's a little bit of sort of the alien trapped within his helmet there, isn't there? And yellow and pink is a brave collision of values, but it happens in nature. I do like the energy in these paintings, actually. Remind us of the scale, could you, Anna, of these works?
Well, it varies. This one is, I believe, like 16 by 12 by 20. This one is small. It's like 6 by 10. This one is bigger. It's like 54 by 54.
Oh, right.
And
don't have to have all of them, but that's a good range and gives us a sense of different.
I thought I said, when somebody said, do you think he'll try? I said, yeah, I think he is going to try. That's my question.
What do you think that you're trying to, I get the sense that you're moving towards like a subject or a painting of a thing, like a light bulb or a skull or something. Is that something you're thinking about with these?
Well, what happens is that when I start putting the layers of the ink underneath over and over, images, shapes start to arise, and some of
Mhm.
them look like something a little
you should
bit,
see this.
maybe they feel like something. And so sometimes I accentuate them with the oil paint afterwards. And then sometimes I, cover that part up and it ends up being what ends up being. And then it's like,
He's
oh,
talking about.
this is.
Oh, may I suggest if it's not your segment, you mute yourself because we're losing some of the track here. If you're not being discussed, if you could mute yourself, I think it might help us concentrate on Anna's work for the few minutes. I think there's one interesting dilemma that must present itself, because in a way, this image we're looking at, it's almost as if it's an interpretation of a found painting. The printer's inks underneath in their pink and reds and oranges, whatever. It has almost a sense of an image found in another medium and then interpreted or commented upon by the green. And I always think carefully when looking at work in which an artist makes an image with the intention of affronting it in some way later in the process. I wonder what it's like. This is not a question to Anna, but it's something that I think, as a critic, I would share with you that I think about quite actively in an image like this, which is the negative and positive energies that goes into the generation of an image that is destined for some kind of erasure or interference or correction or such like. How earnestly is the earnestness compromised of the initial image if the maker knows of her intention to affront it in some way with another layer of image?
Yeah, I think it's just important to work towards clarity about what you're doing and why, which is, I think, kind of what David's saying.
Are you asking me a question?
No. Well, I mean, I think yes, I am, but there is due now. It's due as the paintings go along. But it's not a critique; it's an observation, and it's just to let you know that's something I'm thinking about.
Is this open to other people being able to critique as well, or is it just, are we just here to listen?
So yes, you're here to listen, and what you can do is you can put your questions in the chat.
Okay.
And what we'll do at the end of the evening, if we have time, is that we'll try to ask your questions. Okay, so guys, we should wrap it up and get to the next person. So if you have any final comments for Anna, we'll then go to Ginny Friedman.
Yeah, I just, I feel like, your work is very much about process. And I think that's a good thing, to get into the process, to trust the process, and to see where it takes you. But to almost think of them as thoughts that move forward, so you don't just repeat yourself, to get into a situation of repetition too much, because you don't want to, in other words, you want your work to move towards something. And so it's just something to think about. But good. I love process. Get into process. Process is the way.
Okay, time's up.
Guys, thanks a lot.
Okay, Anna, let's have a clap hands round, snap your fingers for Anna, that beautiful, beautiful work. Okay, and so our next person up is Ginny Howsam Friedman. Are you ready to go, Ginny?
Ginny?
Yeah, I see her. She's good.
Okay, wonderful. Starting timer soon, as soon as you get it up.
Okay.
Starting timer now.
Okay.
So Ginny, can you start your PowerPoint?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't understand.
It's kind of.
And then Ginny, you need to unmute yourself. and
Yes,
everybody can
you're
see
on
you.
mute. And also,
Didn't set it up right.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, you are.
sorry. Do you want me to go through the images and just talk about the size and,
That would be helpful, yes.
okay, so I'll do the images first. So this image is called Wave.
You're
It's
supposed
oil
to
and charcoal.
have
and
it show me
paper.
those two bits.
It's
Yep,
11
yes, and
by 11 and
suspense.
it's,
So if you're a guest,
So I'm going to ask one more time.
Someone can
Everybody else
see
can
you.
mute themselves.
you don't need to be
I can't
muted.
do that. I only can mute everybody.
Well, they set it up wrong.
So everybody take a moment.
But
and-
anyway.
They set up so everybody who joined has to. mute
It's
themselves.
equal, and that's not the way you do it.
But he only gave the participating artists and the two critics ability to.
Okay, you need
Yeah,
to
but-
mute
but-
yourself or
yeah,
I'll
but Lisa
have to
can
exit
talk and
you.
you can hear her. So the way,
Okay,
Michael, I think you should mute everyone and then
I'm going to do it. Yeah, right. Okay. There you go. Okay, so Ginny, you can go ahead. Ginny, you have to unmute yourself.
okay.
Everybody.
You can hear me now.
Sorry
Okay.
for the interruption.
Yeah, no problem. So the first painting is called Wave. It's oil and charcoal on paper. It's 11 by 11, 11 inches by 11 inches. This painting is called February 10th. It's oil, charcoal, graphite, and color pencil on canvas. It's 24 by 18 and it's 2021. This painting is called Map and it's oil, charcoal, graphite on paper and it's 12 by 9 and it's 2021. This painting is called Macedonia Park. It's oil, charcoal, stabilo on paper and it's 28 by 28 and it's 2022.
Ginny, can you try to make it full screen on your PowerPoint? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Now, okay.
okay. This painting is called Stissing. It's oil, charcoal, and stabilo on paper. It's 18 by 24, and it's 2021. This painting is called Ochre Field. It's oil, charcoal, and stabilo on paper. It's 20 by 24. It's 2021. And this painting is called Earthwalk, and it's oil, charcoal, stabilo, and graphite on canvas. It's 36 by 36, and it's 2022. And I've been, I don't know if you could hear me before, so I just want to say again, thank you for this opportunity for feedback. I really appreciate it. For the past 2 years, I've been in upstate New York, Dutchess County, which is part of the Hudson Valley. And this is an area where you can't escape the landscape. And so my work coming out of this period represents the sweet spot that as an artist, I'm trying to combine the opposing forces of representation and abstraction, the real and the imagined coming together. in what I hope is a contemporary landscape painting. One way it works is, sometimes I use a bird's eye view, an elevated perspective. Another approach I have is I zoom in on a detail, and then I look for patterns, shapes, negative spaces, line, texture. And then with this, I try to, from memory, overlap images and use some of the images as touchstones but move them toward abstraction. Some of the inspirations are, ponds, streams, the river, mountains, gardens, a glimpse of a path. And so, I overlap, I interlock, I put down, I erase, I scrape, I wipe, and I draw all the time. And traces remain. And there's a lot of painting, drawing, and amending going on. And I use landscape as my framework to hang my concept of abstraction on. And I try to stay open to change and chance. So that's kind of my presentation in terms of the work.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, to David and Ben, thank you.
11 minutes.
It's great. Again, I love hearing about these different approaches that you're bringing. I'm curious as to how you can tell when your paintings are finished. What constitutes, a painting that is kind of finished? Like, in other words, when you're done with the references and the process, how do you know when they're done? When you're working sort of more or less tactily and abstractly like this.
It's really a good question. And the problem is that, I'll think I'm done, and then I'll put it, aside, and I'll even think of having it photographed, and then I'll look at it again and I'll think, there's not enough light. I have to find a place to put more light. And so it's, and then sometimes I go too far and I overwork, but it's always a challenge to figure out when I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I agree.
I thank you for rising to the challenge, because the works have an amazing poise, amazing balance of they're not withholding some evidence, but they're not. There doesn't seem to be special pleading either. There seems to be that the kind of harmony that one can find in the nature from which they draw inspiration, and even when it's nature in a turbulent state or a threatened state, nature somehow, it's obviously in us, but presents harmony, doesn't it? And these are, I'm dying to see these paintings in person, because they really seem quite gorgeous. They are very deeply within a tradition, but it's a long tradition, and it's a contemporary and valid tradition, because it obviously, one thinks of pioneers of maybe sort of second generation of abstract expressionism, but particularly, of course, Joe Mitchell, and there are other images which seem to actually recall Terry Winters and Frank Auerbach, but they're not. But they're clearly a new voice, another voice, and an equally valid voice. That's why I say I would really like to study more of these and in person. I find them very energizing, energetic, poetic, but like somebody, say, composing modern classical music. I mean, it's definitely not you know, Lady Gaga. But it's also definitely not. Well, we won't go take that analogy too far, but it is an idiom. It's a genre, and there's no reason not to be in an idiom and a genre, which is historic contemporary. But I think if I saw these in a gallery, I mean, it depends in context, of course, but they are what they are. I like them. I mean, it's sorry to. What am I saying? I'm saying I do like them. I have no problem with them, and they belong to a little subsection of our visual culture, which is quite remote from things we see in museums and cutting-edge galleries, and we'll find the right place for it, and it will give us pleasure.
Thank you.
I wanted to say one thing, that your comment about drawing and the kind of consistency of drawing, these to me feel, I can tell by looking at them that you draw, even though there's not a lot of quote unquote drawing in them. And I just kind of say that as something I generally believe in, is that drawing, you know, and painting and understanding yourself through drawing is kind of, I'm overwhelmingly convinced of that. The more you draw, the more freedom you have to do whatever the hell you want to in your work, whether it's painting or sculpture or anything. And this type of work, you can't just, it looks like something you could just splatter some paint around or, whatever, have a good day, but it actually comes out of, an approach to life that is intimately involved with, observational drawing your ideas, and drawing is thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. I'm more comfortable much of the time drawing than painting. So that's why, I use a lot of oil stick and Stabilo, charcoal, and then, try to integrate it with the paint, because, if I didn't sort of harness myself, they would be much crazier than they are.
Mm-hmm.
Much more.
Which maybe is good. Maybe you should get more crazy with them.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, but coming from a place of having that kind of understanding of drawing, it can enable you to almost let it go,
Well, yeah, it's once I get going, it's hard to not let it go.
Good. Awesome.
Thank you.
I wonder though, I mean, I spent much of the day actually looking at the drawings from Dresden at the Morgan Library, and I think often that the distinction between drawing and painting is almost sort of like a trade union demarcation line. It's kind of arbitrary and protective rather than necessarily always illuminating, because your works, deeply colourful works, have a sense of having been brought together through either observation or intuitive mark making that's as often like the mark making of
There, just a heads up, 3-minute warning, 3 minutes left.
Okay, the comment I was going to make, not going to take that long, but I've lost it now. But thank you, Gina.
You were saying mark making?
Yeah, right.
Observation.
So, and at the same time, within drawing, drawing doesn't just mean color is forbidden. So I feel these are these are mark-making paintings, and so these are in a condition that's poised between drawing and painting. There's color, there's line, and it doesn't. Some of them have a kind of. The first one you showed, actually. I'm sorry to be having an English evening, but it actually reminded me of Frank Auerbach's transcriptions of Titian's painting in Cambridge. I don't know if you know those, and the Rape of Lucretia, and yeah, that's it. Now, even that, you see, it's all over, and there's some good gooey painterliness, but it's very much a painting by a person whose rapport with vision is just personally. Does that make sense, Ben?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. No, I don't see a distinction really, but I guess it's just more the like that the way of thinking, like instead of, I don't know if that even works, like, but using words, working with language, or working with just drawing as a kind of, like you said, line, following mark making towards understanding, I guess is what I'm thinking about. And I don't see a distinction between that and painting in some ways. They kind of flow into each other.
Yeah, and no, there are painters whose vision is encapsulated within a sort of seething cauldron of paint, and one doesn't see, therefore, it's not structured in a by following line for a walk. No, I'm not saying there is no distinction between drawing and painting, but I just feel that the distinction is not one's on paper and doesn't have color, that sort of thing. And so that's why I feel that these are very much the paintings of a person with a drawing mindset.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ben. Beautiful. Okay, so next up is, if you can unscreen there, Ginny, we'll get Kazuko, you're ready to go.
Oh.
Okay.
So we're doing Kazuko Kobayashi next.
Sorry. Let me. I'm sorry. I have to share my photos on my phone.
Okay, so what we're going to come back to you.
You're probably not going to see my face now.
And we're going to do. We're going to go to William Lawler. Kobayashi, we'll come back to you. William, are you ready to go?
Okay.
Yes, I'm ready.
Good. Well, go ahead up.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, and do full screen if you can, William. That would be great, so we get a good shot of those images.
Yeah.
Timers.
Okay, I'm William Lawler. I grew up in North Alabama, South Tennessee, outside of Nashville. I was living in New York the past couple of years and moved to Boston in the middle of COVID. I just finished Brandeis University's post-bachelorate program. And I just applied to some master's programs throughout the country. I'll be here in Boston about another 6 months, and then I do not know where I'm going. Here's some images.
And what are these? Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I won't read them to you unless you need.
Hi, I was able with the other artists to pinch them up to be bigger on the screen, and I don't know what the technology is that's preventing that. But,
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. Please continue. Yeah.
I consider these last two not to be as finished as the other ones I've shown. I'm still kind of working these out. They're a lot larger as well. I've also shifted more towards using acrylic mainly over oil, or a combination of the two.
So that's about 80 inches, you said, sorry?
Yeah, 80 by 65.
Cool. Nice big painting.
Yeah, I really wanted to push myself and try to do as big of a piece as I could.
Oh, wow. Man.
Would you like me to talk some more about the work, or?
The texture, the impasto, maybe how it is structured in the way it's made.
Okay. I started off with like a really watery ground, and then once I have that down, I put like a giant layer of acrylic medium on top and started drawing into the medium, and that's what gives it this gooey, I guess, effect, you could say. On the other one, I was using more of a tape surface to get hard edges, and I removed the tape on this one and just freehanded it.
Is that the same one, the 80-inch one?
Yes.
That is.
It's really hard to get a photograph of this piece. It's so dark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you say you like, I mean, I can tell you like Black Sabbath and Johnny Cash and Frank Stella, but do you know Larry Poons?
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah, artists like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make some bit of a hard edge painting, and I keep getting Stella references, but I mean, it was probably, Stella's one of the least people I thought about making this work. Thinking more of like 70s, I guess, process painters is what I was wanting to try to move towards.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these little guys were more complete than the bigger ones.
Why is that?
They just had a better feeling to me. I'm still partial oil paint, and I used oil on these to get like some reds that I wasn't able to achieve with the acrylics, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, I don't feel like you can get good red sometimes with acrylic. It's aggravating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, life is too short to use a medium that aggravates yourself. Unless there's the painter. Here he is again with another English, but well, he's Welsh. That helps. Merlin James actually made a decision in his early career to paint in acrylic, not oil, because oil was too easy to like. Oh, shit.
We can hear you.
No, I'm sorry. It's yeah. So Merlin James but he's he's a painter of who makes an art form out of reticence in a way sometimes, and or spontaneity in quotes, and a very different painter from yourself, I would say. But the point is that he knew the limitation. He knows the limitations of acrylic compared to the joys of oil, and he didn't want too much joy, as it were. But that's his character. But if you say struggling with the acrylic, I mean, there's so much. These smaller oily works have a kind of menacing and treacly effect at once, don't they? I mean, I haven't seen them in person. I'd like to, but they're not sweet and easy paintings, but they're not. They have a sort of sense of they're a little maybe abrasive or damaged in some way. They look like colors. They look like rich and kind of luxurious colors that have suffered some sort of trauma. And I think that's what gives them a sense of validity in life, that these are not geometric abstractions, even if they have elements that one finds in process art, in geometric abstraction, and so forth. It seems that that's a vehicle for saying something painterly that's more about the contingency of life than the reduction of how we see the world or structure the world in simplified terms. Does that Ben, would you say that
Yeah.
your response?
Yeah, no, I think I like what you just said. I think that was really good. I wanted to say that I often struggle with symmetry and composing images and quote making paintings. And I saw a show from Alison Wilding, who's an English sculptor, and she had all these fragments in it. And somehow that seeing these fragments enabled me to let go of structure in a way that I hadn't been able to do before. And those small ones that you showed, they also seem to kind of validate fragments in an interesting way. Yes, the big composed, imposing paintings are good, and that's an interesting route. But I also like the kind of, I don't know, like forsaken piece of sludge, paintings that are like in the corner. To me, that's as equally valid and kind of can be even more personal, than some than grandiosity, or can even have more grandiosity in them. And I can see why those feel more personal to you, perhaps, than the large ones. But that could also just be a matter of time, like obviously you haven't been working as long on the big dogs. I also like what David said about Merlin James, because that's someone that uses material in a very different way than you. And that might be good, to look at someone who's very clear in their decision-making, but it's different, it's like a different approach.
Show us another one that's in acrylic that would contrast.
This one?
Oh, right. Often it's funny. The maker has an experience, and the viewer has an experience, and it reminds me of tea.
Of what?
Of TEA.
Tea.
Sinensis. Yes, that tea grows on a hillside, and usually tea gardens are high up, and half the bush is often going to struggle to get to the sun, and the other half of the bush is luxuriating in all that sunshine. And the Chinese tea connoisseurs have a particular affection for, in fact, the growers almost sadistically taper the bush so that it's not going to get good sun, so that it's going to have a full acrid struggle sense within it. And so maybe it's just that's what we're dealing with. That I'm not sensing that between the acrylic and the oil work necessarily, other than the obvious kind of treacly, painterly sort of lushness, or just the kind of the almost the viscera. Well, no, I don't think so. I think you probably got what you wanted to say in either medium. It might be like somebody who's writes poetry in his native Basque, but also in modern French or Spanish, and the one doesn't do what the other does, but his faithful readers or her faithful readers will hear the poet in either language. So maybe it's just a good thing to, because it sounds like you're not, I don't know you from Adam, but your way of describing what you're doing and sometimes there's a certain fatalisticness in your self-presentation, and maybe therefore it suits your character to have this split of mediums. It's not a dichotomy, is it? It's just like having one car that's shift stick and one car that's automatic. I mean, if you're going to sit in traffic all day, you take the one that's automatic. If you're going for a jaunt in the hills, you take the one that's shift stick.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's both and.
Yes, that's the way we need to go now, apparently. Or anything you can get your hands on, which is the same thing, I guess. No, they look like. Do you know Fran O'Neill's paintings?
I do.
Ah, good. I imagine you feel maybe an affinity?
Yes, I like her work.
Good, good. I mean, she's developed in a different direction, but there was a phase when there was a sort of, yeah, I think it feels to me like the bars are alive. Sometimes the painting we're looking at the moment, for instance, this is not a criticism, it's just a feeling. It feels more like a depiction of a structure that we're seeing than it does like a pure abstract painting that has this structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And I think it has something to do with the way that light is working within the painting. That we don't have a flat, uniform light. We have a rather romantic sense of forms in space, actually, which is what gives it depiction of structure rather than painting with structure feel.
Which is very different from the Frank Stellas, the early Frank Stellas and so forth.
Couldn't be more different. Any Frank Stellas, yes, exactly. Even his attempts to be vulgar are formalist and reductive. And these are there's an interesting angst in these paintings without them being overtly tortuous in their sayings. They're not saying anything that has angst. They just have an edge within them that suggests that the artist is aware of the vicissitudes of life.
That's well said.
Okay, guys, we're gonna have to stop here. That beautiful guy, great. Thank you so much. They're lovely. They're like Bridget Riley having feelings. We love them all. So we're gonna go on to, let's do Kazuko. Are you ready to go now?
Yes.
You are. Okay.
Okay.
So let me share. Wait. Sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay, so can you see?
Yep.
Okay. So well, I'm from Japan originally, and my background is Japanese traditional calligraphy.
Kazuko, we see you. I don't see any images yet. Are you trying to image there?
Do you?
Yeah.
There we
See
go.
it now? Okay, good.
Okay, starting timer now.
Okay, great. So yeah, so my background is calligraphy, and I'm always interested in mark making, and the brush strokes of how the brush strokes transcend the personal energy. So this piece is 20 by 22 on paper. And sorry, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I have to. I have to go. I'm so sorry. Oh gosh, I
Take your
have to
time.
do it each by.
Why don't you just pick one or two that you really want us to look at?
Okay,
Yeah.
great. That would be good. Okay, so let me do this one. Can you see this one?
Ah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, this is 22 by 30 on paper. It's sumi ink and acrylic paint on paper. So my aim is for basically somewhere between control and accident, and working with values. I'm sorry, I just did. I have a crappy laptop and I have to work with this iPhone. So I was trying to share images in the Dropbox and they didn't let me. So just have to go each by.
So what is it that you're trying to say with these, with this calligraphy? Because you say you come from a calligraphy background, but what are you trying to say with your work?
So the work is about, I mean, it's about, I mean, of course, it's about process of mark making. And it's very, for me, what I'm trying to say is all my works are very personal. And I don't know how, sorry, I just can't articulate it, but I'm just very, sorry, I'm just very nervous. This is like very, yeah, first time being picked on anything to be discussed on. So I'm really sorry that I'm not prepared, but.
Just show us another one of your.
Okay, I will. Let me see. Okay. This is another one that I did. It's 22 by 30 and it's ink, acrylic and pastel and graphite. So, and it's on paper. And this was done in December last year. So it's very current work. But so what else? I have one more maybe to show.
Just one is fine. We can talk about that one.
Okay. So those are I just showed the three of them, but
Can we go back to the last one?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's just look at this one.
Okay. This is 22 by 30 on watercolor paper. This one, I was just trying to balance different blacks and layers on different mark makings and a little bit of light coming through the dark, different type of blacks that I used.
Are you interested in, the history of Chinese and Asian ink paintings? I'm assuming you know about them quite well. You're familiar with the history and so forth.
But I'm more interested in not so much about ink painting, but I'm interested in the calligraphy, which is the Chinese symbol that we paint, not paint, but we draw the lines with, like, we how do I put, we write Chinese symbols with the ink on paper, rice paper. And when I do that, I used to do that, and when I do that, it just different mark. You can create a different mark, and that different mark conveys a different feelings, depends on how you make the mark. So that's what I'm interested in. I don't know how else I can articulate it, but
I'm sensing that, the Chinese, the pictographic mark, the pictographs are closer to, way closer to depiction than the Greek and Hebrew derived alphabets, which, theoretically we can see bait, beta, house, but with the Chinese, that palpable sense of them really being world pictures it makes sense of a painterly mark. I remember going around a fantastic installation of classic calligraphy at the Hong Kong Museum, and not speaking or reading a word of Chinese, I said, I'm going to have some real fun here, because I'm going to intuit from the mark making what these guys were like, something about the feelings behind them. I really spent a lot of time with one work. I loved it. I thought, this guy must have been a wild lover and a poet, and so on and so forth. Then I read the caption. It said he was a general who suppressed a mutiny and killed several hundred people, and was rewarded by the emperor with something for restoring order. I thought, okay, Cohen, that theory doesn't work. But the point is actually expressiveness is with the last artist, about how they had a sort of a sense of darkness or a sense of that this is the juice of life without being identifiable as one emotional state or another. And I think with the purposiveness, the philosopher Kant talks about purposiveness without purpose, and that's something that I think is coming across in a positive way in these calligraphically informed works, that they have a calligraphicness without being calligraphic. It was the impetus of the calligraph doesn't have to be. There's no need for a legibility for it to still have that of the brush leading a thought or feeling forward.
It's interesting to see these and think about Virginia's paintings, that are sort of directly derived from landscape. And you're saying yours are derived from pictographs, in a sense, and this long tradition of mark making that you came from. It'd be interesting to see the two side by side, I think, as a kind of compare and contrasting, because they're both very much environments, that you kind of enter into, that have feeling, that have, pathos. Some aspect of your character is revealed, through the mark. in this kind of alchemical process. It seems like they, I feel like, Anna actually, with her process, moving towards this same sort of like field of feeling or something. I don't know if that's true, and maybe I'm reaching a little bit, but they feel very honest and direct, when the way you're working. And it's like this idea of completeness, but also provisional, not finished. It's just, I don't know, it's just a comment.
Do you title the works? Are each of these works titled? The one we're looking at the moment, for instance, or not?
Which, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, is this work titled? Titled? Does it have a title?
This yeah, this one is a When the Night Falls.
Oh wow, that's the title. Yeah.
The big title.
Yeah.
I mean, black within black is it's extraordinary how I can see color underneath. There's a clearly purple visible, isn't there, underneath, and then a contrastive wash, grayed out ink, but
it
seems to be like a whole range of implied color within what's being done with black, which again is a bit like the way language can convey such complex thought.
I have to say, it actually looks better in real. The picture,
well, that goes without saying. We're professionals here. We know that.
Yeah.
I must say, I would be curious to see you pass through this and then go back towards doing the calligraphic, the language that you said inspired these. I would be curious to see if they would be different after having gone into this more, environmental type situation. And I'd be curious to see them side by side.
Yeah, I would try that actually. With the alphabet, I did calligraphy work with the alphabet, choosing a word, and like for example, I chose the word violence, then I made the lines put the feelings towards the word. So I tried a couple of work like that.
I like the idea of those two things working together. It's not necessary. It's just art. It's not necessary to do just one thing, as discussed with William. You're free, to keep exploring. If you stay locked into a mode for too long, then, you become rigid.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about this mess. But,
Hey, listen, we're art critics, not Zoom critics, and we get excited by whatever we see, and we can't do what we want. So take it easy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're going to go to Judith. Judith, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Good, okay.
So this is my first screen share, so hopefully it'll go well.
Swimmingly well, I assure you.
So that. So I can do this, I can do this presenter view like that. I'll just go through the slides first, and then I'll give you my little talk. Very small.
Okay. These are objects, right? Yeah.
These are objects. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to go back to 1. Okay. So you guys want to have
The bigger the better. Like if you can fill the screen with an image, then that's better than this way.
Okay, so I'm not sure how to do full screen. Let me see. How did anyone else do full screen on theirs?
So go to end show.
Okay. And then I'm there.
You should do slideshow. Do slideshow, that should do it. Up at the top, it's in your sky.
Okay.
There
Is
you
that
go.
better?
That's much better.
Yeah, much better.
Okay, great. Well, like everyone else, I'm really grateful to be here, and thank you so much. I'm looking forward to feedback. I have a BFA and an MFA from the School of the Art Institute in painting and drawing. So I am a self-taught sculptor, object maker, and it's part of my, and has been part of my daily studio practices. I walk in a nearby forest preserve, and along with all of the visuals that I get, the textures, I also use it as a place to like meditate and think about just being human, and then, you know, all the things that we experience in our human life. And I hand make this white material. It's bark. It looks like bark-like material when you're up front and close to it. And I try to use as many of the byproducts of the tree that I can figure out how to use, like resin and sawdust. So I'm using the tree in particular as a mentor and teacher, referencing the body and different parts of the body. In particular, the past 2 years, I have noticed a huge change in the population at the Forest Preserve. It used to be abandoned, and now it's very crowded. And I'm also interested in how we're able to recognize each other with our masks on. It seems to be almost like a normal thing now that you're out and about and you're with your people in your community masked up, but you still know who pretty much who everyone is, you know, just by their eyes. And so I'm really kind of delving into a little bit of that, the portraiture. I've always been really interested in abstracted portraiture that has, you know, the fuzzy edges and things are askew. So I did, as we'll see, a few of the pieces are called head. So I'm kind of moving, playing around with, you know, is this gonna work kind of thing. So it's all brand new. And then there's one larger piece that's called figure. And then the last piece is a sawdust piece. It's just sawdust on cheesecloth that I draped over a metal rod, basically. Just playing around working with sawdust, which is interesting. It's painted sawdust. So that's my story. This is where I'm at. Yeah.
So is this a portrait right here that we're looking at, or is this like a tree portrait, or is this some sort of shamanic
It's more
person?
body-like. It's more, it reads more body-like. I don't know if you can see it's about 72 by 30. So, I mean, it's a larger piece. Yeah.
It looks like an unusual combination of someone in a MAGA hat and a hoodie.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Look, I'm sorry, but I'm seeing it less than the size of a postage stamp. But it looks like a guy in profile who's in a MAGA hat and wearing a hoodie.
Okay.
But is it it protrudes from the wall, does it? It's it's like a relief piece.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't feel qualified to really comment, Judith. I wish it was pinchable. Yeah, I mean, no, one or two of the artists' presentations were. I could just fill the whole screen with it. Can you not do that somehow? I could be completely misreading it.
No, that's fine. You say that and stuff.
I don't know how to make it any bigger.
Ah, okay.
So that's the first piece, and this is the second one.
Mhm.
And here you can see the backside of the fake tree bark, which is yarn.
Mhm.
I cast the yarn and the plaster on a handmade tool that I have made. And then I just take it off in one piece. And then the resin is also cast. And in
So
this
you were
case,
really getting involved in materials and processes.
yeah.
And what has led you into this kind of, it's pretty, it takes a lot of guts to get really into materials, at that level.
Well,
Is that just
I think it comes out of, in my painter days, I was a traditional fresco painter.
a fresco painter?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and there is, in this first piece here, this little area up here is a fresco. It's made, it's a fresco. So I work a lot with plaster, traditional fresco, importing the limestone putty, getting the sand from the yard, et cetera, et cetera. Learned how to work with pigments, made my own paint, and but it was just too heavy. It was just really, really too heavy to keep working. That way you can only go so like 36 by 36 because they're really heavy.
Sure.
So I found a way to work that way, but just on styrofoam, and they're small, but I was integrating that type of work with this work. And this just happened. I was teaching myself sculpture, and I was in my basement. I had a lampshade. So I just started wrapping the lampshade with yarn, and I had joint compound putty. So I just slathered it over the yarn. I had no idea what I was doing. And I just, when it dried, I liked what it looked like. It reminded me of tree bark. So I started to play around with it. Like, what can I do with this? Can I paint on it? Can I manipulate it? How do I make this work? And so these are that one's getting a little bit, more sculptural. And then these are definitely sculptural. They're beyond the relief. It's a sculptural piece, and this and that one.
They're sculptural, but they're also fiber, aren't they?
Pardon?
Are they fiber?
No, they're not fiber. Well, I guess you could say, I guess I'm straddling the fence between fiber and sculpture with these. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what, in a way, I don't care what they're made of. They feel like fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Have the condition of fiber. They have the condition of hairy and fabricy, and it doesn't be clothing. It can almost be the wool within. It's yes. By the way, if you're not speaking, please mute, because it's just. You're not speaking, mute yourself. Thank you. Yeah. it seems like viscera as well, you know, but it's the stuffing of life, as it were, sort of spilling out. That's the sensation.
Yeah.
And therefore sort of organs as well. I mean, the organs are not, the heart is not the heart shape you get on the I Love New York. It's a valve. It's mushy material that's, you know, like doing stuff. And I get the sense that without being overtly depictive, and apart from that first one, I was obviously misreading. It just couldn't. It looks like I don't know. I wish I could see them properly, to be honest. But they feel like they have the condition of stuff or stuffing of you know, when you get in an industrial or a commercial space where the ceiling has been taken down, and you get a sense of, you say, wow, I had no idea that, I always thought of buildings as being these very smooth, geometric, orderly things. And then when you see the drop ceiling come down and this or that, the other being pulled out, especially with these modern materials, that they think, I had no idea that buildings were so visceral and hairy and kind of woolly and contingent and almost a bit frightening and, you know, alien. And I'm not saying these are frightening and alien, but they are the stuffing of humanity rather than, say, the human form.
Okay, I think I got that.
There is mud. Is my speed.
I wanted to say I agree with what David's saying. I want to see them together, you know, in relationship to each other, as like characters. And that way, I think you can make decisions about which ones are more specific and which ones, you know, are saying something that you really want them to say. I feel like they need each other, you know, they need to be together in a space, like a room, you know, like a room with stuff hanging down, or an old building, or a forest or something, as opposed to being specific objects, if that makes sense. I almost see them as being parts of a stage or something. You know, that first one, it's like you were collaging these different elements together into this large thing. And I feel like these are parts that can be collaged together into a larger situation. They could then be photographed or demonstrated, you know, or entered or walked around in or something. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I see the possibility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see that last one, that draped sawdust one. I love sawdust.
Yeah,
See,
originally,
something like that. The others, you know.
Can you say that again?
That's beautiful, by the way. I really love it.
Can you say that again?
I said that's a beautiful piece. I almost want to see it in relationship to some of the other ones, you know.
Yes.
How they speak to each other.
Is it it looks like, is it like a drop cloth?
It's cheesecloth.
A cheesecloth.
So it's cheesecloth, and it's stiffened, and then the sawdust is laid on top, painted sawdust, and it's adhered to the cheesecloth with a stiffener, basically.
I see. Yeah, it has a kind of animal sort of, like an animal's pelt that's been strung up. Or something. Maybe that's a literalist reading, but it feels like something that's has a utility and a totemic charge at the same time. Am I heard? Ben is, gosh.
Okay, so that's all time for Judith. We're going to stop here. Thank you so much, Judith. That was great. I think we're having a little technical issues with sound. So when moving forward, it's going to be kind of tricky. But when you're not speaking, you need to mute yourself. Then when you need to speak, unmute yourself, because we're just getting this weird echo. And I think it's just because of how late we've been on. So we have one more to go, and that's Sylvia. Sylvia, are you ready to go? No, you're not ready to go? Just gonna mute yourself. You gotta unmute yourself.
Yes, I believe I'm ready to go.
Great, okay.
Now, all I have to do is click share screen, right?
That's all you need to do, right?
But it's not sharing the right thing. Hold on. This is not the screen that should be coming up.
It should be
Oh,
on.
here, there we go. We'll go with this. Okay.
Okay, and then go to slideshow, and that will make it big.
Yeah, it's just being slow. There we go. But this is not the beginning. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Beginning. Forgive me, I am going to read because as I prepared this and I was practicing, I realized I really didn't sound very good. So I will read as I go through this presentation. I'm a painter first. I'm a color theorist second, and I'm a systems and cybernetics scientist third. I have identified as an artist for all of my life, but my path to being a professional began when I went off to college for the first time. I made the classic error of choosing what I thought would be a good commercial, in air quotes, art choice, because of course you have to make money as an artist. And that choice was fashion design. Within that year, I changed to fashion illustration. And a year after that, I changed to textile design, and then I dropped out. I went to work instead and found myself in the tech industry, which led me later in life to the studies that I ended up in. When the opportunity arose for me to return to college, I went. But again, I didn't choose studio art. I instead got my bachelor's in psychology and biology at Potsdam College, with my focus being on visual perception. I went on to get a master's in systems science at Binghamton University, and my focal project was a system that described color constancy. At the time, I had no intention of going on for a PhD, but that's exactly what I did. And again, the primary subject of my dissertation was color. As I was about to finish my degree, I joined the American Society for Cybernetics and served 2 terms on their executive board. Many of the members were design experts, and I learned a lot from them. Now I'm about to retire from my day job, and I plan to work full-time on my art. Many moons ago, I read Kandinsky's Concerning the Spiritual in Art, and I became very interested in the ideas and constructs that he presented. Much later in my life, his work became the cornerstone of my systems and cybernetic studies. And in the process, I identified the theoretical foundation for using systems tools for studying and making art. I also developed 2 of my own tools, the first being my chroma generative model, which describes relationships between colors and informs my mindset as I'm painting. Cybernetic scrying is my method of interacting with my canvas as I'm working through all the colors and elements that comprise each work. This particular painting, British Soldier Lichen on the Big Rock, is chronologically the first completed of those that I am presenting today. This group of paintings and a handful that came before it represent my first foray into alkyd oils. Before that, I painted exclusively with acrylics. I probably won't go back to acrylics. This new medium suits me much better. I have also switched from brushes to palette knives, and they give me a greater sense of freedom, and I can accomplish my objectives with them more easily. The canvases I am using are gallery wrapped 1.5 inch thick stretchers. And if you haven't noticed, there are wooden objects attached to the sides of my canvases. These are not mere ornaments. They are what I call non-frames, which mark the intersection of the side of a dimension at the side of the painting and throughout. Within this work, as well as all others, you should be able to identify opposing regions of color. And this painting, as well as all of them, except
I'm very sorry
one.
to interrupt, but this is a lecture about your work, and I can't follow it. It's too densely theoretical. Do you want my critique or not?
Sure.
No, I mean, you don't have to have it. If you'd rather we just listen to your lecture, we can.
No,
but
it was just an introduction.
No, it's not. It's a lecture.
Okay. So this is my second painting. 2 more. And the last 2.
Thank you. Okay. Ben, sorry, I don't necessarily.
Hello. Yeah, no, I think it's, you seem to have this vectoral kind of structural underpinning to these that you're then using the alkyd paint to kind of smear over the top of it to give it a, you're going for a kind of paint effect, right? Would you say?
Well, it tends to be iterative, so what is underneath can change dramatically throughout the course of making it.
Of course, yeah. But they seem alive there, and that's good. They seem to be active surfaces. I'm a little bit concerned. You have this kind of smudging technique that is good. I'm interested in the smudge, but it always remains in a very aesthetic place, very pretty. The colors don't destroy themselves, which makes me feel like you're being a little bit too precious with the paintings. I feel like you can carry them further. The way that the colors are easily identifiable for me becomes problematic because it interferes with me trying to see what you're trying to paint, if that makes sense. So I would say be much more aggressive and forceful with them. I don't mind the objects on the side. I'm kind of interested in the way that you do that. I think you can explore that because it draws attention to the objectness of them, which is separate from the painting, but it doesn't bother me. I thought it would bother me, but it doesn't. I don't fully understand what you're doing with those, but whatever, that's okay. It separates them from it. But if you take those away, the paintings need to go a lot further, and you need to be much harder on yourself about clarity and about what you're trying to do and why. And you need to ask yourself, systemic cybernetic thinking, systems, those are abstractions, those are separate separations. But painting is about the personal, it's about you making something, and you will always be in that. And so I suggest going further and further towards that every time you pick up a brush. Honesty is the best policy. Honesty comes through rigorous self-examination and work, and drawing, as we had said earlier. And hopefully these things become more and more clear and less kind of fantastical and derivative down the road. It's good to see you working more and more and making series of them, because I want to see 150 of these things before I feel like you can really carry them into a place that is really your own.
Okay.
I think that an artist can make valid work from any system of thought or a phenomenon in nature or science, and that that's point is proven over and over again, certainly since the 1960s. There's a woman named Pamela Lee who wrote a fabulous book about synchrony and art. It looked at the whole the sort of emergence of cybernetics in the 60s, and experimental artists working with time as a factor. It's a very rich and dense and suggestive and satisfying strand within art history. And Tom Noskowski, when he started out painting, I mean, he started as a sculptor, but when he started painting, he was reading an important history of the Crusades from a sort of left perspective. And he set out to make paintings about Crusader iconography. Now, you wouldn't associate that with an artist like as whimsical as Noskowski, but many of the best artists of our time have been either hooked on or have felt a sort of urge towards a certain, say, conceptual abstraction or whatever. So there's nothing inherently contradictory about your desire to paint and your scientific interests. There's just an absolute cognitive dissonance between the images I'm looking at and the theory that was being developed in your lecture. And I just, I think Ben is saying in a very positive way what I'm afraid I'm inclined to say in a negative way. I don't think these are paintings. There are sculptural elements here. There are depictive modes. There's a strong use of an attraction to bright colors. But I don't think the impulse here is to paint to the world. I think it's I think maybe the thinking that needs to take place in your practice is even more fundamental. Ben says he wants to see hundreds of these. I think I want to see another option. You're clearly a woman of passion and energy in the painting, and of ferocious intellect in your interests. And there's a cognitive dissonance between them. And now I know it sounds hypocritical to interrupt somebody's introduction to their own work and then say, I can't see, I need an introduction to this work. But I'm afraid my instinct, my very strong instinct, and you can beat me up or hate me for it if you like. My strong instinct is the evidently strong sides of your character and endeavor are not going to happily come together in this strategy.
Okay.
Now, every great artist needs a critic to throw darts at on their studio wall. You can, I'll send you my picture, you can use me. But that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it. We're out of time for Sylvia. Thank you so much. Okay, so that is, you want to stop screen sharing there? We can get back to the whole group. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and participating. I heard some wonderful things. I really want to thank David and Ben for your thoughtfulness and your time. And I also want to thank the artists for showing your work and really sharing what's going on with you and your struggles and your aims and your objectives. And you know, the idea of this this crit series was this idea of virtue, which is this idea of what am I reaching for, right? And that being the true calling of an artist, right? That we keep reaching. And I've seen some great reaches tonight, both from our critics and from our artists. The striving is truly wonderful. So give yourselves a big round of applause for all that you've done and all that you've come for. And now this series continues with Peter Trippi, who's in our audience tonight, who's the editor of Fine Art Connoisseur, and a painter, wonderful painter by the name of Patricia Watwood. And the next iteration will focus more on figurative practices and representing the real world. So I hope you'll come back to that. If you're not a member of Equity, by all means, please become one, because we'd love to see you come into the fold. So again, we're going to call it a night. We're all famished for dinner, and David, you've earned a steak on me. Pick where you want to go. And Ben, I'm so heartily welcoming to see you in person in New York. We're missing you here, calling from Detroit. So again, keep fighting the fight, keep working your work, and we'll see you all soon here at Equity Gallery.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all the artists for sharing it in an education. Thank you. Really, yeah.